Today's episode is brought to you by Dr. Jeffrey Halstead, DMD. Dr. Jeffrey Halstead has been Canandaigua's hometown dentist for more than 35 years, offering routine dental care as well as cosmetic dentistry, implants, and dentures by their highly trained and experienced staff. Visit them online at canandaiguadentistry.com or find them on Facebook and Instagram.
Everybody, hello. Welcome into Bills Weekly here on fingerlakes1.com. I am Paul Russo and Jim Sinicropi here with you this week. Kyle Evans out. Hopefully he's going to be feeling better and with us again in the near future. But Jim, me and you will be recapping the Thursday night football turnaround victory for the Bills against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and looking ahead to Week 9 matchup, Sunday Night Football edition against the Cincinnati Bengals. And we'll discuss a little bit of breaking news also occurring in Bills world as it stands right now, but good weekend for you. I know football-wise ended up being pretty good collectively for you there a little bit as well. So without further ado, like I said, a good weekend for you.
Yeah, Bills played on Thursday night, so it's like a mini bye week for them now, which I think is much needed. I mean, they needed that win. They got the win, but I don't feel much better about it. As a matter of fact, there's just so many question marks from this game. I mean, anybody that watched most of the game felt like, Josh Allen had settled in. He was running the ball. He threw for over 300 yards. They were spreading it around. Gabe Davis had, 87 yards and a touchdown. Dalton Kincaid with knocks out had another good game, 65 yards and a touchdown. Shakir led everybody with 92 yards. James Cook was running the ball, 14 carries for 67. So everything looked good. The special teams Bills punter Sam Martin was pinning them like 4 times inside their own 10. Yet they almost lost the game to the Bucs in Buffalo. All of that, and the ball was in the air. If Chris Godwin for Tampa Bay turned his head a half a second earlier, he catches the ball and the Bills lose. Yeah. So I don't know what to think about this team anymore. But I will say I don't know what to think about the entire NFL anymore. So, you got the 49ers lost this week to Cincinnati, who Cincinnati started out 1-3. Now they look like the best. They killed the 49ers in San Francisco.
Right.
And now the Bills got to go to Cincy next Sunday night. Kansas City lost, right, to Denver.
Yep.
I mean, none of it makes sense. So, if you take the Bills isolated in a bubble, you're like, what's wrong with this team? They do not look like Super Bowl contenders. But if you look at the league as a whole, does anybody?
Right. Yeah, I mean, one of those things that I know we talked about, off air a little bit was just like, I don't know what to make of it anymore. Like, yeah, it's weird. I mean, look at Philly. Philly comes out victorious, but it took them about 50 minutes to wake up against Washington to fully kind of get ahead of them.
And that's a Washington team that the New York Giants handled easily a couple weeks ago. Mm-hmm. And now you got supposedly the best team in the NFC, or one of the 2 best teams in the NFC, struggling to get the win. So, a lot of it just doesn't make sense. And then if you think, okay, well, the Giants are good. Well, the Giants are not good. If you watch the Jets-Giants game this weekend, you realize that they're not very good. So normally in sports you can say, okay, this team lost to this team by this much, so they should beat this team who beat that team or whatever. It makes some sort of logical sense. But week to week in the NFL, nothing makes sense. And if you're trying to bet the league, you're really probably shaking your head. I mean, I haven't seen anybody. All the pundits and experts who give picks each week, they all have losing records against the spread. You can't even pick games straight up anymore.
Right. Yeah. I don't know what to make of some of that. I don't know. I think I have a little bit of a different take on the game than you do. I thought offensively, it was a really positive showing in some of the realms that we were talking about, last week and really the last couple of weeks. I thought it was a really good, efficient game overall for Josh Allen in the grand scheme of it.
I agree.
I agree.
They offensively, they look good. They only put up 24 points.
Right.
But if you're watching the game, you're like, okay, look at the Bills go. Look at Josh Allen go. He's running again. He's, throwing. He had one bad interception, trying to make something happen, but you can't have it both ways. People want the offense to loosen up a little bit. They want Josh Allen to, run the ball more and scramble out of the pocket and take some chances. So, that one interception early in the game really kept Tampa Bay in the game for the duration.
Yeah. And, I think for me, I look at it from someone like we really talked about last week. That's like, all right, is the fact that it almost seems like they were trying to funnel the ball just to Diggs, right? And consistently like that, where, you look at this past week, the past Thursday night, and, Khalil Shakir had 6 receptions for 92 yards, a leading receiver technically. In the way we view those stats.
Yeah.
Gabe Davis had 9 receptions, 87 yards, and I think what I'm getting here right, because like Dalton Kincaid, a name that I know both you and Kyle throughout the week were really harping on actually for trying to hopefully make that impact. Did make that impact, 5 receptions.
Second straight week.
Yeah.
So
and to me, when I see those numbers, and Diggs had 70 yards as well, reception wise, that was a really nice spread. That Josh Allen was able to have. And I think that was something that, after we talked last week about how, it looked like he was really just the play calling it himself or really funneling to one specific guy in Diggs in a short turnaround week where we were all apprehensive about it. I thought that was a really good showing. That if they're able to carry us throughout now the rest of maybe not the rest of the year specifically, but the next couple of games where this becomes a more consistent outlook when we come in each week and talk about, maybe it's not Shakir, obviously, but, maybe it's Gabe Davis next week. And then it goes back to Diggs, stuff like that, where it's
and
not.
Diggs still had a good
not
game.
All Diggs. Yeah.
He had 70-something yards.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. That, I think it proves a more positive outlook on this offense where, the defenses in turn that they will face, maybe they know that you can't double coverage Diggs or something like that. You have to be more vigilant of Gabe Davis, of Dalton Kincaid, of Shakir, of Hardy, whoever else happens to be in the mix that day specifically. You also have to keep tabs on them more often than that. Defensively, it's weird because I thought, they did really good overall. They held, specifically Mike Evans and Chris Godwin to some pretty good numbers in the grand scheme of it. Mike Evans was below 40.
Gave up 18 points.
Yeah.
I mean, if the Bills only give up 18 points, they should win they should win every week. They should always score more than 18 points themselves.
Yeah.
But like I said, let them hang around.
Yeah.
Couldn't finish them. End up with a Hail Mary pass. Yeah. I mean, no team wants to be in that situation at home, and if Chris Godwin catches that ball, all of a sudden the Bills are a 500 football team.
Yeah.
But he didn't.
No. And it's one of those things, leading tackler was Terrell Bernard again, with only 8, which surprisingly a low number. We're used to talking about, especially when Bernard's been the leading tackler for the Bills. It's been in double digits consistently all year. And I don't think it's maybe specifically one way or another type thing to look at. I think the more concerning thing is, the past couple of games we've noticed more, I'd say in the secondary kind of creep up more and more as being impact guys. And, it wasn't specifically great. I mean, Taron Johnson had a sack as well in there and everything like that. But kind of like you mentioned a little bit, right? They just couldn't quite snuff out the Buccaneers all night. And
this game was in Buffalo, not Tampa. I keep reminded saying that. Sometimes on the road it's tough in the NFL, so you worry. Or you can say, okay, they got out of Tampa with a win. But this was a home game, primetime Thursday night, and Tampa Bay, led by Baker Mayfield, is not necessarily, a preeminent franchise in the NFL. And the game was closer than it looked like it was all game long, and really Bills fans had to breathe a sigh of relief when the final whistle, when the game ended, because Tampa Bay had a chance at the end.
Yeah. Like you said, where Chris Godwin had turned away from probably having a very different discussion.
Yeah, and a different, like I say, mini bye week, which is great for the Bills. If you just look at it from afar, now what are they, 5-3?
5-3.
And they have the extra few days to get healthy, and even a little longer because they play at night Sunday, I guess. But when, Josh Allen has that shoulder issue, that extended break is going to be good for him. Ed Oliver's got a toe injury that just needs more time. So this mini bye week came at a good time, and now they got to play 4 more games, and then they get their actual bye in week 13. So, we'll reevaluate again, I guess, at the next bye week. But so if you just take it from afar, 5-3 through the first 8 games of the season is a minor disappointment, but still they're on track.
Yeah, I agree, especially for the way, I'm not going to run away from what I said. I still think this is a team collectively still at a crossroads of sort, kind of looking at the future here a little bit, like I said in preseason. But, that being said, 5-3, I think I'd be kind of fine with if they looked better than they have been, because that's just a way of like you said, Jim, right? Look at the NFL. We just don't know what the hell's going on here at this point. But just the way they've looked leaves a little bit more to be desired. They're sending a game back in the division still of Miami as it stands right now. And, not to maybe go too far ahead of, talking about previewing the Bengals game coming up. You talk about, right? Bengals start off 1-3. Well, guess what? They're 4-3 and somehow at the bottom of the AFC North even. Yeah. It's one of those things where it's going to be a deadlock still coming through, and this is going to be pivotal. This game Sunday night could be a tiebreaker depending upon how things shake out in the standings for a wild card spot potentially if things remain the way they are right now.
Yeah. Well, before we get to head to previewing that, probably the biggest game of the year,
right?
And a game that's going to be just so overhyped because of the return to Cincinnati after the DeMar Hamlin thing, which has nothing to do with anything. But breaking news this afternoon in Bills Nation, they made a move. Yeah,
Leonard Fournette, running back, signing with the Bills, passed the physical, visited there, I believe, 10 days ago or so now at this point. And it might catch some people off guard. I know maybe initially it caught me off guard a little bit, but we'll get into maybe a stat here in a second about
physical.
That. Yeah.
It's not been widely reported, but some back channels, social media, they're saying so that deal's all but done. He should join them on Sunday night.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I think when you first read it, right, you're like kind of sitting there going like, well, they have James Cook, right? And he's by far, the number one guy there. And that's good, but I think it comes down to
what's Murray as well, who to me is like Leonard Fournette, Latavius Murray. What's the difference?
Well, I'm about to read this stat to you then that might be a little bit of a difference. So this is per Ian Hartitz of fantasylife.com, which is Matt Berry's site either way. Mm-hmm. So Latavius Murray has been stopped at the 1 yard line and failed to score a touchdown on the same drive in NFL high 4 times this year.
Oh, wow. And so, Damian Harris could take that role, but he's on the IR with a neck injury.
Yep. So what this tells me is that the Bills are looking for what they'd hope Latavius Murray probably was going to be. Now, could this all be outright on Murray? Probably not. A lot of it comes down to line play and the stuff in the trenches. But, this is telling me that they're kind of looking for a guy that they know that they can really turn to. I mean, Leonard Fournette's nickname is Playoff Lenny. Somebody that when it comes down to the stretch run of things, they know they can put the ball in the gut of a guy and he can more than likely work himself into the end zone.
So Fournette, LSU, right? Then he went to Jacksonville, then he went to Tampa Bay.
Yep.
Never really panned out is how he thought when he came out of college. He was in the middle of the road.
Yeah, I think I'd allow that, I'd allow that.
But, the way I look at it is like, geez, if Tampa Bay didn't even want him over Rashad White, and who are the other running backs?
Sean Tucker.
Yeah, Sean Tucker from Syracuse. Yeah. So, how good can this guy be? But, if you're getting him for insurance or for, just get a little deeper at that position with Damian Harris being on the IR. I got no problem with it. And maybe he'll have some sort of revitalization. I mean, it would be great to see the Bills come up with a guy the caliber of like a Thurman Thomas, a real bellwether, running back, that's among the top in the league. But I don't think Leonard Fournette is that. I don't think James Cook's that either. So they're just serviceable guys, and Fournette at best seems to me to be a serviceable guy. But maybe he'll surprise. Maybe there's more upside there than I'm giving him.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I still think there might be some overall question mark exactly why, but I can see it. I mean, if the stats are saying that they're struggling at the goal line to get it in with one running back, then give it a go with another. I mean, you're at the point of the season. It kind of reminds me of the signing of a way now that I'm really thinking about it. Remember when Adrian Peterson kind of got, released by the Vikings the first time around and
went to the Redskins?
Yeah, he was with Washington. He ended up popping up with Arizona there too, where they brought him in on these deals a couple weeks in after the season started to kind of, I guess, stabilize like this type of situation for those teams. He wasn't the number one guy in either spot. I think with Washington, they still had Rob Kelly was floating in there a little bit. And I only know that because
again, you're talking
there,
about Adrian Peterson, and then he can't win the job from Rob Kelly,
right?
I mean,
right.
So Leonard Fournette's far too young, I think, to be washed up. He's younger than Adrian Peterson, I think, was when he was traded to the Redskins.
Probably give or take-ish, yeah.
So how old is Fournette?
Fournette,
28. He's 28 years old. Last season he ran 189 times, 668 yards, 3 touchdowns, 73 catches for 523 yards. So he had over 1,000 yards from scrimmage. Only found the end zone 3 times for, Tampa Bay with Tom Brady. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I'm comfortable with our Bills running backs, I suppose. But if you want to throw Fournette on the roster, there's only so much the Bills can do anyways with their salary cap issues. But if Fournette had that much value, he wouldn't be sitting as a free agent waiting to be signed, at Halloween.
Right.
I would think. Even Jonathan Taylor signed eventually. People don't hold out for that long. If they have value, they find a spot. So I'm suspect. Suspect.
Yeah. And I think you and anybody else would have the right to be. I definitely agree with that standpoint of, he's been shelved for literally half the year. We're entering week 9 this week of the NFL. We get through the 1 o'clock window this week of games. It's halfway over. It's halfway over. And the running back thing in the league as a whole is just weird. I mean, we look back at the summer with the running back kind of summit type thing that they had and everything. I don't think maybe that played as big a part in the Fournette side of things as maybe with a couple other running backs, But it remains to be seen, I guess. That's why they're going to bring him in and kind of see, I guess,
what
the deal is.
If he even sees the field.
Right.
And if he doesn't this first week, maybe it might take another. But if he's not making an impact by let's see, they play the Broncos and Jets back-to-back after the Bengals. So if he's not seeing the field by November 19th when they face the Jets, then it's probably not going to be much of an impact. But so,
and I think maybe too, it's a bit, you talk about the Jets and Dalvin Cook apparently is on the trade market. Trade deadline.
I would rather have Dalvin Cook than Fournette, although I don't know.
Maybe, I think to me it's more indicative of maybe, I mean, everybody kind of is thinking league-wide that this is supposed to be a active trade market, trade deadline for the NFL, which we don't really see all that often.
In baseball.
Right. And maybe they tested the waters or asked a couple of teams about maybe some of their backup backs and maybe.
I think it's a little early. The NFL trade deadline, don't you? If they could just go maybe to Thanksgiving, you might see more moves because right now, even the worst teams are not really out of it yet. They still got hope. Even teams like, the Giants got a couple wins. But give it a few more weeks and then it starts to become, okay, we're not making the playoffs. Right. We got to make a plan for next year. They might be willing to move some real players.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just a different sport when it comes to in-season trades.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Maybe they just saw the tea leaves and were like, well, maybe we're better off grabbing some guy who's been available all year type thing.
We don't know the cost either.
That's a good
it
point,
might be a bargain basement signing, so that, if they committed to him for 3 years,
Right,
$5 million a year, I might question that, but.
Yeah. Especially this year, right? I mean, this is any sport. This is no exactly behind baseball type thing right here, as we call it, but he'll get the pro rate of whatever. What I'm assuming is probably just going to be a vet minimum deal with some sort of incentive kicker somewhere along the line. Yep. That'd be my best guess. I mean, I would highly doubt, and I would be highly questioning if they were to sign him to like a 3-year, $5 million deal type thing at that point, So, especially where they stand right now with everybody else and their situation against the cap. So, all right, let's keep the future focus here. Let's talk about this Sunday Night Football matchup coming up in Cincinnati, 8:20 p.m. on NBC. Cincinnati 4-3, as we already mentioned, following a 31-17 win at San Francisco in Week 8. Joe Burrow, Joe Mixon, and Jamar Chase, your three-headed leaders on offense for them.
On both sides of the ball, the 49ers last week, right?
Yeah.
On both sides of the ball.
Defensively, though, it's interesting. Defensively, they've allowed 389.9 yards average this year, 251 through the air, and 138 on the ground. So there's definitely some headway potentially to be had there. Bills currently, for the first time all year, sitting as an underdog, a 2-point dog as it stands right now. Over-under of 48.5. Current forecast.
I believe it's the first time the Bills have been underdogs this year.
Yes, they are. Yeah, first time.
And
forecast of 43 degrees and cloudy in Cincinnati for that. So,
yeah, they opposite of the Bills. They started the season 1-3. Bills started the season 3-1. Joe Burrow obviously was not healthy. I mean, you can see the difference. Right. The whole offense starts clicking. It's funny. I should have put a futures bet on the Bengals, after that 1-3 start, because they are back to looking like who they should be. And similar to last season's game in Cincinnati, it's going to be an important one with a lot of playoff implications on the line. I think they're going to just overdo the DeMar Hamlin stuff, especially being a Sunday night primetime game. It's just like that is old news if you ask me. But that's going to be a big focus of the coverage, I'm sure, which will kind of be annoying. But the Bills have had 3 games so far this year that were super hyped, like game of the week type of stuff. One was the opener against the Jets. Mm-hmm. That immediately fizzled when Aaron Rodgers got hurt in the first drive of the game. Right. And then the Bills lose. But opening week, whatever. The other was Miami. Mm-hmm. So Miami comes to town, and the Bills thrash them 48-20. So now this, to me, is the third marquee game where you're thinking it's game of the week in the NFL, possibly, or at least one or two games that could be the marquee game of the week. And this is actually in prime time, where Miami was a 1:00 game. So this is a big, big game, and it's going to set the tone for the rest of the way for both teams.
Yeah. Yeah, this is an intriguing game. It's going to be interesting, I think, how even the team with Buffalo kind of navigates the DeMar Hamlin situation in my mind, because he's been a healthy scratch pretty much all year.
Yeah, he's not.
So
and I hope I would last year because of injuries. Like he's not like this cornerstone of the secondary for the Bills.
Yeah. So I would personally hope they make the right game decision by not activating him this week.
Well, I'm sure they will. And another while we're talking about the secondary, their first round pick in 2 years ago, Elam?
Yeah.
He doesn't play.
No.
Like he's
hardly at all.
They left him on the practice squad, they brought up Josh Norman from the practice squad just to play on special teams instead of Elam this week. So, he's not taking the spot from DeMar Hamlin.
No.
Again, that was the type of thing last year with Hamlin that captured the imagination of the country because it was a primetime game. The whole country saw it. They didn't finish the game, I mean, it was so odd.
Yeah.
And then, everybody praying for Hamlin to recover, and he did. But to me, it's over. That's over. But we're going to relive it this year. It's going to be the theme of the broadcast, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
And the theme of the broadcast should be Burrow against Allen. Both teams are kind of like right on that brink. One of them's going to take a step forward into being one of the favorites for the AFC Championship. Another one's going to take a step back and be on the outside looking in. It's a huge, huge game for what will be the first game of November for the Bills.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I mean, by the time, timing-wise, we cross in this game, NFL regular season, halfway over. And you talk about two teams being neck and neck in this quote unquote, I guess, see who gets through this wall first type deal. But, these are the two teams that, look, we project them out to be quote unquote whoever goes and plays the Chiefs type thing, year in and year out. Or as we looked at it from maybe last offseason into this one, where it's like, all right, these are two of the other three-headed monsters in the AFC. Like, what's the deal here? And now both teams are kind of at the same point, right? Like, what's this next step going to be?
But they got here maybe in different ways.
Right, and maybe this is the game where maybe this is the game that whoever wins kind of, like you said, breaks through to that point.
Yeah, and the Bills are coming into it, in my opinion, kind of flat, where the Bengals are coming into it like it's almost like the beginning of the season where they started 1-3. They just were not, Burrow obviously wasn't healthy. Things weren't right. But since then, they've looked exactly like the Bengals, culminating in, like, dude, that was mind-bending victory for them to go to San Francisco and win like that from what people were thinking of San Francisco. Rightfully so. San Francisco looked unbelievable on both sides of the ball. And, Cincinnati thrashed them in Buffalo. They put up 31 points.
Yeah.
Fred Warner, Drew Greenlaw, I mean, that great defense, prolific offense, Christian McCaffrey. George Kittle, Deebo Samuel. I don't know, man. I'm scared if I'm a Bills fan. If I had to put a wager today and the Bills were only 2-point underdogs, I'd take the Bengals.
Yeah. It's one of those deals where, in that sense, where you really hope that the public moves the line a little bit and gets you, I'd say, an extra point here, 1.5 type thing, which, I mean, I could maybe see, honestly, I could see it one way or another, depending upon how this week goes. But the
one advantage the Bills have is they've had these extra 4 days of rest.
Yeah. And, for that end, right, I mean, the Bengals are coming back east.
Yep.
And I don't fully buy into it as much as some people still do to a degree, but, it's going to, if you're the Bengals, you're probably just kind of getting going on maybe stuff for the week at this point right now. I'm assuming that flight got back a little bit late last night for them, so.
Yeah, they're probably mostly off today and then start preparing tomorrow.
Yeah, so. Yeah, I don't know how to read this game yet.
I don't either, other to say that if I had to pick today, I would pick the Bengals.
Yeah. It's one of those things where, and, I might get a little bit chastised for it, but I don't mind saying it. The situation from, say, Buffalo to Cincinnati isn't all that different, going from Highmark Stadium to whatever it is now in Cincinnati. I think it's still Paul Brown Stadium or something. I don't know.
Some company that starts with pay.
But either way, it's similar turf surface there, artificially speaking, similar atmospheres, and it's going to be
short trip
as we call it, quote unquote, football weather, right? Cold, cloudy, probably going to be on the damper side of things. I think it's going to kind of be a toss-up type game. I'd lean. I think I'm
very similar.
I think I'm with you. As it stands right now, I lean Cincinnati only because of the home field element of it at the moment.
Home field probably is the kicker, but Joe Burrow looks like Joe Burrow. If you want to go position by position, we probably can. And so you want Cook or Mixon, right? Probably Mixon. Jamar Chase or Stephon Diggs, probably a wash.
Yeah.
T. Higgins or Gabe Davis, probably T. Higgins.
As a T. Higgins fantasy owner, that's also a toss-up this year.
And then, where the Bills do probably have an advantage is in tight end now.
Yeah, no, I agree there.
Kincaid. And then defensively, they're very similar. They've got, they're both solid but not spectacular.
Right. Yeah, I think defensively the Bills give up 30 less yards than the Bengals on average, technically.
But the Bills have also, played the Jets and Washington and the Giants.
Yeah.
So that will skew your defensive statistical performance stats, right?
Especially after this past weekend for two of those teams in particular. I think we're both kind of leaning the same way right now. I don't know final score-wise just yet. If I would venture on that path, I don't think I got one yet. The 48.5
scoring.
Yeah, the 48.5 point over/under is the interesting mark there because I think they got it. If it's one of those like quote unquote ideal situations type weather, I think they have it in the right spot. But if it's going to be cold like they're saying it is, like 43 degrees at night, that means it's not going to exactly feel 43. Probably a little bit colder than that.
Yeah, but is it going to be windy?
Right. Is
it going to rain? Because if not, I don't think that's too cold for football. And those players are out in the field. They're not going to be cold.
Yeah. But,
I think that
it's one of those things where I think I can see this being a pretty low scoring deal, to be honest with you.
I see it the other way. I can't see either team holding the other under 20, whether they'll get to the 48. We haven't given our predictions yet, but I'll give mine. I think it's going to be like 28-24 Bengals win.
Yeah, I kind of go that direction as well, just at a lesser total. I bless you. I think 17-14 Cincinnati.
So we both got Cincinnati coming off the win, just in different ways. Do you really think that the Bills are going to hold, or the Bengals are going to hold the Bills to 14 points?
Probably not, to be completely honest. It's just when I see the weather, 43 cloudy, nighttime. So it's going to be, in theory, it will be on the damper end of things. And neither team has dealt with that so far this year. Exactly. It was really good weather in San Francisco this past weekend. Thursday night in Buffalo was really nice, and I'm being honest, after and maybe not the best example to use, but after seeing that Jacksonville-Pittsburgh game yesterday, where it was just a mess of a wet game.
Well, if it's pouring rain, I would lower my expectations on the scoring, but if it's just going to be cold and damp and low winds, I don't see any reason why the weather would keep the score down. But traditionally, these Sunday primetime games have gone under.
Yeah,
that wasn't the case, I think, last night in San Diego and the Bears.
The Bears, that second touchdown, the Bears got there late.
They went over.
Yeah, pushed it.
But traditionally, these primetime games have been lower scoring this year.
Yeah. But
traditionally, everything's been lower scoring. And this week in the NFL, almost every game went over. Except for Jets-Giants.
Yeah. Yeah. So, hey, that's why we sit here on Monday and predict what will happen quite literally Sunday night. So.
And then find out that we were dead wrong half the time.
It's the beauty of it.
That's the beauty of the NFL this year, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. So, I think on that note, we're just about pressed with all we had to talk about, I think. So, Jim, appreciate you coming on here, obviously, as always, and lone wolfing it.
I would like to see what Kyle thinks about that Cincinnati game. He'll be back next week, I'm sure. He's just a little under the weather. But it would have been interesting to get his take on this because it is one of the more intriguing matchups of the year in the NFL. And it's going to be, the national spotlight. And maybe we'll see Leonard Fournette in a Bills uniform.
Playoff Lenny rocking the Bills. So, all right, everybody, thanks for listening and watching. You can find Bills Weekly here on FingerLakes1.com, FL1's YouTube channel, and all major podcasting platforms. That includes Spotify and Amazon Music. So let's go Buffalo. We'll talk again next Monday. We'll see you then.